The following presentation was recorded at the 2025 Southeast Linuxfest in Charlotte, North Carolina. It is licensed under a Creative Commons license. For more information on the Southeast Linuxfest, visit www.southeastlinuxfest.org. Come join us next June.
All right. What do we say we get going? Sound good? Perfect. Packed house, I know. But yeah, honestly, thank you guys for come hearing me ramble on about CI/CD in the DevOps space. Basically, we're going to have a conversation today about what I believe to be the truth about the DevOps industry. Basically, well, I believe the CI/CD is now your single point of failure. What's supposed to accelerate your delivery is now a source of constant friction. And I feel like I should know this because I'm a DevOps architect and cloud solutions architect that's been working at GitHub and Circle CI for the last decade. I've worked with large-scale enterprises, helping teams modernize and control spend, frankly, break out of vendor lock-in. And what I'm about to show you isn't necessarily a theory. It's kind of what I've lived for the last 10 years. But yeah. So in order to have this conversation, I think it's best for us to say, in order to escape something, you kind of have to know, all right, are you trapped? So I'm asking the question, do you think you're trapped? And honestly, I don't expect anyone here to really think that they are trapped or not, but hopefully by the end of this, may have opened some eyes or may just tell me I'm dumb. So I'm open to either one. So first, let's think about your DevOps journey. So you've crafted a great software development lifecycle, ensuring your teams can be agile and efficient. You've implemented CI/CD pipelines. You're building, you're testing your code. You're doing everything that you think you're supposed to be doing. And now you brought it all together in this nice little pipeline, best practices, all these amazing tools, AI agents, everything that you could possibly imagine that's available. You've put it all together in this nice box. So why does it feel wrong? Why does this feel like I'm doing everything right, but yet for some reason everything still feels weird? Or better yet, off. Well, if you take a closer look, sorry, small print, but you're doing Docker layer caching, you're doing security reviews and updates after every incident, you're doing centralized logging and retention, you're doing golden images after production infrastructure, build notifications into your Slack team channels for fails and retests and stuff like that. Your artifact storage is good, it's versioned, you clean it up regularly. But you still have to figure out what legacy tools people are afraid to touch on your teams. You have 3 CI tools in your company with no dashboards, no ownership. CI spend is doubling with no performance gain. You have no idea why. Nobody wants to touch a specific pipeline. I'm pretty certain at least one of us here has immediately thought of that one pipeline that you I don't really know exactly what that is. And it's not my job, so I'm not going to touch it. Orphan builds are running for months without anyone seeing it. Tool decisions are made years ago without any revisit or any thought to them. And now all this leads to just a bunch of questions. From a CI space specifically, when is your peak demand? Are resources being used efficiently? Which teams are billing the most or build the most? Who owns that pipeline? Again, that pipeline. Which one of those CI, or better yet, why does one of the CI tools have different metrics than the other? Why do I have to migrate all of my teams to one particular tool when they prefer another? I mean, it feels like you're constantly chasing this clarity and definition, and you're never quite getting there. And so when you ask for answers, you basically just get a high five and say, we'll give you that after you update, after you adopt. If you don't worry, we'll gladly help you. Just, migrate more teams, get more users on, we'll get you that feature in a month, in a year. And let's be honest, beneath the hood, they're not giving you that feature. So let's take a look at your real life cycle. All right, the real pipeline that you actually are made. You have all of these nice bells and whistles, but your software delivery pipeline comes with vendor lock-in, where I only get the features, again, after you adopt. Cost per user, that's great. It means that every new teammate requires more minutes, more credits, more everything you need. Cost per minute means that you optimize for performance, fantastic. They charge you per minute. They monetize every aspect of your time. You need a different operating system? Great. There's a price for that. How about resource size? Don't even get me started on how exponential that is. And let's not forget the most critical of all the things, network usage and storage. Yeah, you've probably forgotten about that one. Anytime you transfer your images to S3 or push anything anywhere, you get input-output charges. That's just how it is. So with all these hidden costs and complexities in mind, the question becomes, where do you even begin to escape? And typically that results into 3 options for you, or better yet, 3 steps, if you will, to help you take back control. The first one, you can do baseline changes. You go through your CI configs, add shard flags wherever, do dependency caching, audit your CI for unused or outdated configs, even update retention policies. I mean, these are all good at the baseline. They're a good start, but they only scratch the surface. I mean, to see true improvements, to break free from this consistent constraints, you need to move into a bigger step. You need something just more radical, like with these, I guess, radical optimizations that you can have available. This is where you kind of stop patching your pipelines and start rethinking them. In order to do that, you typically end up having 3 options. You can go the self-hosted route, which will give you, great cost savings, but the maintenance and the lack of features just they're obvious. I mean, you could also do a custom solution. I mean, that's great. Built by your team for your team. Hell yeah, that's fantastic. But you're going to spend way more on engineering time for probably solving about a quarter of the actual problem that you're going to be experiencing. Or better yet, I mean, you could go the immediate cost savings route if you're worried. You probably can't really see those, but they're all the typical cost saving options where you can still have your GitHub Actions, your Circle CI, but it's a third party using their data center. So you're losing control and you still end up having the same, blind spots that you had with any other thing that you were using before. All these make it harder to understand and track where your money is being spent. And, if it's not paying per seat, it becomes build minutes. If it's not build minutes, it becomes your engineering time. So what else can you do? Well, the other option is contract negotiations. And I know that's not necessarily IT related in any capacity, but it is part of the trade, unfortunately, especially in the DevOps space. You can do negotiations, but good luck negotiating with that one CI tool that you spent years adopting across all your teams, the one that keeps your business running, or better yet, how about trying to switch cloud providers? I'm sure we've all tried to do a migration at one point in time to a different AWS, Azure, GCP, on-premise, anything along those lines. You'll get better security, better uptime. It's going to take years to migrate. And it's very much easier said than done. And let's be honest, once you've committed, once you've integrated, once your teams are dependent, that's the trap. being forced into this perpetual cycle of being just charged little by little to just build and fail, what DevOps is supposed to be, right? The whole point of DevOps is failing continuously in order to, frankly, learn and grow and make things better and have better process improvements. But, when you see countless customers with Confluence in the top bold print that says 150 size font, do not spend more than 50,000 minutes on GitHub Actions. Like, that's not DevOps. That's, you're worried about costs. You're going to be just, yeah. So that's the trap. Well, I guess to continue the conversation, I want to show you how we escaped. So after 4 years of honestly painfully working and building and rebuilding and prototyping and everything like that, we finally came up with a solution that we called Phantom Agent. It's nothing too crazy. We built Phantom Agent not to replace any CI tools or any processes or any procedures or anything like that, but just to simply take back control across all your tools and cloud and team. One place, you just control it all. So it's you keep your existing lifecycle, quite literally, like we have just this simple existing lifecycle. We clone, we check out, we build, we have tests, we deploy, and we package. Nothing changes. However, underneath the hood, because we are using this orchestration layer, Phantom Agent, for our pipelines, when we update one of our services, Phantom Agent listens for the build event, provisions the resource dynamically. That is, if our AI agent Casper isn't already predicting our build patterns ahead of time to pre-scale things accordingly. Meaning, if my team builds from 9 a.m. to 11, Casper learns that build pattern and allows me to pre-scale accordingly. It starts learning and finds that perfect relationship between cost and queue time, being able to fully allow us to just get to the bare bones of what we actually need to do. And after that, we publish for our particular workflow, we build our code and we push it to, it's built in EC2. Once that build's complete, we push it to ACR, all right, Azure Container Registry. From there, because of the way Phantom Agent works and how we're integrated with all existing CI tools, we can actually listen for the webhook event feature at Circle CI, which then triggers Phantom Agent again to allow us to deploy anywhere we want. And all of this is without modifying any of my CI tools. It's all on the dashboard, allowing me to configure things. So whether it's staging, production, or a custom network, we have full control without ever touching any of our underlying CI tools. And now, basically, you've seen that flow. I'm going to actually show you kind of how that works in action. And again, the idea is to get your thoughts and start thinking about ways to solve and connect these tools to the point where we're not just paying to pay. We're actually connecting and using things and making it so that DevOps can actually be about the technology and not about the underlying costs. All right, so now we're going to do a little walkthrough. Let's see if I can do this over here. Ooh. Oh, no, okay. There we go. All right. So basically the way we designed it is starting at the top. I know it's a massive amount of resource spend, trust me. The $3 really eats into my budget. But basically this is a one-stop shop and it's constantly growing and migrating. And that is every CI tool that I currently integrate with. So all of my analytics exist here, and it's literally a constantly growing list of metrics that we're collecting. Because one thing I'm sure that the people in this room have experienced at least one point, that some of these tools don't like to provide information like other tools. So you end up getting this conflicting source of information, and you're like, oh, I really wish I could see what this tool is doing versus this tool, but they offer different ways of measuring. So this right here is designed to hopefully combat that. The next step is honestly probably the biggest part for us. It's integrations. And so what I mean by integration is just your CI tool integrating. So right now, we currently support Circle CI, Drone, GitHub, GitLab, and Jenkins. Basically, you connect to any single one of these. I'll actually show you one of the active connections that we have. Let's use GitHub, for example. So I'm connected to GitHub Cloud right now. It also works on GitHub on-prem and everything along those lines. But basically, we set up the connection. This does it automatically for us, but you can also input the information if you want. Just to connect as a web app that's what GitHub likes for us to do. And then from there, GitHub loves to use things like runs on and stuff. I'm sure you've already seen if you've ever modified a workflow file ever before. You see a runs on or a resource class. I think GitHub or GitLab also calls it just on. So yeah, like you basically customize and define whatever you want. You can provide it for each team or anything along those lines. And then you're off to the races. You can do that with every single CI tool that we integrated with. And then from there, once you have all those configured, you now go to your networks. So we also, to the same degree, we connect with AWS, GCP, Azure, Kubernetes, OpenShift, and vCenter, so on-premise data center support. So basically, with any one of these networks, we just are able to connect in and provision any type of resource that, frankly, we support, which right now, I'll go through all those resources, but right now it's pretty much every resource you could imagine. But yeah, basically you go into there, you specify VPC, region, subnet, stuff like that, basic configuration information. And you also specify, at least for this, I believe, oh wait, no, this is a new connection. So let's go to AWS here. And in the security, we use OpenID Connect. But this is also, so this entire thing is self-hosted. So Phantom Agent runs within your own data center. It never goes outside. So you can actually do OpenID Connect from one cloud to another, or I think the other option is using a service account. So essentially, it never goes outside. It does everything from within. And then any additional configuration, proxy support, stuff of that nature, because sometimes their builds need to reach the outside world. After all of that, you go into your resources and you can select any type of resource we have. I think right now, yeah, we only have Elastic Cloud Compute, virtual machines, Kubernetes pods, OpenShift pods, and just the compute engine of GCP. That being said, the one thing I actually didn't put in today, and I'm kicking myself for that, but ECS Fargate as well, because, why not use everything? So from there, you can go in and you specify just not contact information, resource information. So your AMI ID, the cost per resource, because you want additional metrics, right? You want metrics around how much a build is costing you, how much a resource is costing you, are you over-provisioned, under-provisioned, stuff of that nature. So we just allow you to fill out as much as you want. And again, this is the problem with live demos. This right here in very horrible fine print is failover resources. So one thing with DevOps as a whole right now, what happens if, GitHub goes down or Circle CI's data center goes down, which is, by the way, AWS US East 1, much like every other business in the world probably at this point. Well, you have the ability to fail over to a different cloud provider. So that build will still keep building. It'll keep going. And that, frankly, just doesn't happen nowadays. And then from there, you just connect what you want to connect. So right now, you can connect whatever you configured. So Circle CI, any GitHub, GitLab. That's all I have configured right now. But you configure any of that for that resource. And basically what ends up happening underneath the hood is that Phantom Agent will orchestrate, and once it gets that build event, it basically breaks things down and it says, okay, well, it's Circle CI, it's using this resource class, it has this specification, and it provisions that resource, or it finds a resource that's already provisioned. Again, we pre-scale things accordingly. So this right here is the orchestrator. This is what I consider the brains of the operation in that regard. This is also where our fun little AI agent Casper comes into play. It's nothing fancy. It's just forecasting, and it does a fair amount of things around your build. So it monitors your builds, your build patterns, what resources you're trying to do. If your build and resources don't really fit together, let's say, your build is only occupying about 50% of the resource, which typically means you're overspending. So you can go through all of that and it gives you suggestions, and that will be in the dashboard. But through here, I can go here and I can say, I want all of these to be configured within this orchestrator. I want this orchestrator to only do these right here for these particular for this particular CI, for this particular team, however I want to configure it. And I can actually launch this in any ECS, Fargate, or Kubernetes cluster. It's just a container. And then from here, it's something fairly simple. It's just, actually, you can see firsthand. So this is a recommendation from Casper about that super tiny print, but basically it recommends that I provision from, what is that, 12 p.m. to 5, about 50 resources, just because I was burst testing. But it, again, it goes up to, we've tested up to 5,000 resources in 30 minutes. Nothing, it didn't even break a sweat. And yeah, so basically, not only can we do that, but I'll actually show you something else on top of that. So you can actually configure intraday scaling yourself, not just on the AI side, but you can say, I don't know about everything yet. So I want to kind of configure things on my own. I have a rough idea of what teams need what. So, for example, like I have this tiny scaling policy, right? Well, I can branch it out to, let's say cover the entire day. Or better yet, I want to say, okay, well, that's only one resource. So let's do like 5,000 resources, and let's do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and set my time. And right now it's all UTC based because time zones are confusing and we don't want those to break. But yeah, basically you do all that, it pre-scales accordingly, and anytime a build event comes in for any of your CI tools, at least for this particular configuration, any CI, Circle CI, it will take in the build, process it, close it. Another one will be spun up in its place before the build is even completed. And it finds that just perfect unison of, again, queue time and cost. But yeah, and then lastly, just basic things that I feel like we should just always have. So labeling, if you want, this automatically deploys in any network that I've already configured. So it will automatically configure and deploy to an ECS Fargate or Kubernetes cluster or anything like that. Or if I wanted to, it'll print out the Helm chart for me. If I want to do a custom deployment down here, and it'll just give me what I need, and I can inject it into any Kubernetes cluster. And as long as the orchestrator can talk to the Phantom Agent API, it can literally run anywhere. And that's kind of the point. Again, we are using these tools together to just make DevOps actually about the technology again. But yeah, so that's kind of the overview of it. And let's go back to the deck because, 1 second. Actually, you know what we'll do as well? I immediately forgot to do this. Problems with live demos. But I have pushed just now a little update. And this is going to take a minute. So we're going to talk a little bit more about it because, again, we haven't pre-scaled anything. And the way my workflow works, it's going to be spinning up an EC2 instance, which relies on spot instances. So that's the downside as far as if you're not pre-scaling, you're just going to have to be at the mercy of whatever cloud provider. Granted, Kubernetes clusters and deployments and stuff like that is perfectly fine. So right now, if you can, let's see here. I just pushed into my Git repository, my Git web app is currently building, or is being assigned a build. Then I'm going to go the way I've configured it. If you remember that walkthrough I said before, so I make a push to my web app, which I just did now, which is going to have a nice little banner at the top of the screen once it's finished. But basically, in our AWS account, it dynamically provisions an EC2 instance, which I appropriately named just agent right here. And as you can see, it's initializing. Once it's done, it's going to build an image, push to ACR, and then that webhook's going to be sent to our Circle CI, which is right here. Circle CI has a nice little feature of listening for webhooks. And once that's done, it's just going to go through and actually go into our Kubernetes cluster, spin up a pod, and run just a basic Helm deployment with the new image. And there you go. That's all you need. So right now, if we go back to it, you can see it's building. It's going through the motions. So however long it takes to build a web app image and push to ACR, that's what's going to happen. So we're going to let that slide. I missed my order of operations there a little bit. So this is going to take a moment, and while we go through the next slide. Let's see here. But what we will see, again, just proof in the pudding, so to speak, a nice little banner at the top talking, giving tribute to the demo gods, because I'm doing a live demo and we all know how those work. But yeah, other than that, let's see. Oh, lost. There we go. Yeah. So let's go back to, just messed all of it up. All right. So this is what life now looks like after we escaped. We have on-demand provisioning if we want, based off of what my team needs when I need it. Zero friction when I switch platforms, meaning I can switch from Circle CI to GitHub to Jenkins. I can now manage that legacy Jenkins pipeline that no one wants to touch, and I can actually know where that's actually being built and who's controlling that. I also now have predictive scaling. So now I can find a relationship between all my teams and who builds what and how that works. I now have unified insights. So all of those different CI tools now give me something helpful that I can actually predict. I now also know what team is building what. I can actually provision 4 teams into their AWS accounts. So it just goes directly into their billing. Or I can have team A in Paris in Azure, or I can have my other team in my data center. It doesn't really matter. I can put it anywhere, and the cost breakdown is obvious. And it's there, it's transparent, and it's for every CI tool. And lastly, we have end-to-end CI/CD optimization. We can use any tool we want. We can negotiate. We're not reliant. We don't fall into adoption tracks. We don't have to deal with any of that noise again. So I'm going to ask again, are you trapped? Thank you. That's it. Yeah, go ahead. I'll be completely transparent. It's me and 2 other guys. Yeah, it's been about 4 years in the making. I started the initial proof of concept when I was working at a company that I probably shouldn't say its name. Let's just say we had a disagreement on things, and I transitioned to another company in which I probably shouldn't say their name. We had another disagreement on things about this very similar workflow, and probably shouldn't say its name either. But yeah, so it's me. a team of a couple of 2 to 3 other guys and about 3 support contractors. We have a couple pilot programs with some large scale enterprises right now, which is really fun. And again, it's just one way to solve the problem. I mean, I think the biggest thing that needs to happen is there's so many tools and you keep getting constantly, oh, this new tool's coming up, especially with, don't get me wrong. Like, I love the new AI trend. I have AI in my own system, but like, you keep getting these new tools or these adoption plays, and underneath the hood, especially if you're dealing on the contract negotiation side and, the customer success side, they want adoption. It makes sense for them to want adoption. They want more business. It is a business to them, right? It's all about the cost. It's not about the technology. It's not about doing the right thing for the industry as a whole. It's about just doing things that will ultimately give them paychecks at the end of the day, which isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just, this entire endeavor was just about me getting tired of the DevOps industry not going forward. So, but yeah. Any other questions or thoughts? And again, feel free. Like, I have a bunch of blogs where I rant. So feel free to come to our website, phantomagent.io. And if you want to pilot it or try it out, I love your feedback.
Hey, so the creators of all these like CI/CD tools are kind of known for not being interoperable with one another. So I'm just wondering what kind of challenges y'all face in dealing with that, building Phantom.
I think the entire project is around exactly how things should be interacting together. But like, I think the perfect example that I kind of have is like, or the biggest example is like, for example, AWS cloud and Azure and all that stuff. They all do the same thing, right? They're all infrastructure, but they're all named things differently. Same thing with CI tools, for the configuration side of things, for like, how with our CI tools, how we integrate, we do runs on for, or like they call them labels at GitHub. They call them just on, or again, labels at GitLab, or resource classes, or whatever. And they're all built slightly different ways. They all have their idiosyncrasies. Like, difference between webhook and then pulling mechanisms underneath the hood, how they all work. Not to mention, ironically, I'm pretty certain I've fixed a couple of their issues in Phantom Agent, which is like, for example, like retrying just inadvertently on demand, or orphaned builds. Oh, that's a big one. They all treat orphan builds in different ways, but long rambling story short, it's the entire thing was just 4 years of us banging our heads against the wall, be like, this should work this way. 3 other CI tools did it this way. Why does this have to do it this way? And you end up in this scenario where you're like, okay, how do I standardize this to the point where any CI tool I use going forward can just fit into this scenario? And like, case in point, we're already expanding. We have drone in beta test in Jenkins. Jenkins is completed, but the problem with Jenkins is that the pipelines are so old that you have a variety of different configurations on how you need to integrate with them. So like, there's plugin mechanisms, or they do have already an idea of agents. So it gets a little tricky with that, but yeah. So I don't know if that fully answers your question. There isn't really a right or wrong answer. It's just like a lot of brute force and figuring out a way to just standardize things. Honestly, with Phantom Agent, and I'll go back to it here in a second. Oh, nope, that's a wrong slide. Let's go back here. Like, I started using my own terminology as we're going through things. Like, CI tools are now integrations. Underneath the hood, I reference everything as a label, not just a resource class, just to make things more coherent. Circle CI, when you do self-hosted stuff around them, and they have a great options out there, and like GitHub has, Actions Runner Controller that does webhook stuff. The Circle CI does polling, I believe. GitLab does some webhooks as well. Sorry, they're all just jumbled up in here, but yeah, it's an entire endeavor in just figuring out a way to not just duct tape, but find a good way of connecting the dots. But yeah. Oh. Any other questions?
So a lot of times they also want to track work item integrations and like the state of the work items, Jira versus DevOps versus whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Does this mesh with that very well?
So we haven't gotten that far yet, but we are talking about that because by standardizing this, it actually has opened up a few doors. We have actually in the last month started talking about kind of connecting those dots, but that leads a whole other thing. And we're also trying to see if, like, how far in the CI tool space should we go? Like, we're already supporting 5 CI tools. Should we support 10? I don't think so. But at the same time, yeah. So, it's definitely in the works. It's an idea. And the cool thing that we could do with that as well is the way we also design Casper. Right now it's very CI oriented, but we want to get more information around the teams and how they orchestrate and how they work together. So if we can start tracking work items and like the progress that teams make, we can actually actively predict their build patterns ahead of the time and do almost seasonal conditioning as well. So you can actually see, well, your business is like has a quarter sprint this year, or like, we can actually predict patterns that you may not even be aware of that your teams have. So a long answer to yes, we have thought about it. It's not there yet, but yeah. And actually, as I hopefully finish rambling, so basically actually, hold on, let me check to see where my cluster looks like right now. Okay, yeah. So basically, as I was talking and rambling, we go back here, and this should not be done yet. Demo space. Oh, well, okay. The pod just terminated, so it's going to be up here in a second, and we're going to have a nice little alert window at the top. But yeah, long story short, it built out as expected. Just a little longer than I wanted. But yeah, anything else?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. Oh, actually, about some integrations. Do you have anything on the kind of docket for like Git T and Git T actions and also possibly OpenStack on the infrastructure side of things?
Yeah, so it's actually it's great that you brought up. I don't know if I touched upon it because again I ramble. But we are looking into OpenStack. We actually have OpenShift as well. I know they're not the same, but yeah, we keep planning on expanding more and more on the infrastructure side because I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of being able to switch to any infrastructure I want at any point in time. Like one thing, long story short, yes, OpenStack, we are looking at that. And what else were we looking at? Some additional like on-premise configurations. So I'm trying to remember. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I'm running out of steam at this point. But yeah, any other questions?
Change the subject because I'm not a DevOps guy. I'm a developer.
Mhm.
What's your implementation like? What?
Like underneath the hood?
Yeah.
Oh, you want the secret sauce? No, okay.
No, I don't want the secret sauce. What
No.
languages you're using?
Yeah.
Where you're deploying it? How's that worked out for you?
Yeah. So basically, we use Next.js for the web application. Just TypeScript, lovely little language there. The orchestrator underneath the hood is Golang. The API layer is also Nest, Nest.js. There's been a lot of iterations. I won't lie. I went away from Terraform initially because, Terraform would be like, I'll be honest, the first iteration of this proof of concept, just because I was irritated about certain things, was just like Python and Terraform. Let me just bootstrap this and see how well I can make this work. And what I found out very quickly is I'm not doing anything correct with Terraform, like best practices. So I'm not storing state. I'm not doing anything like that. So it gets a mess. I'm not doing a typical state file. Everything is in my own data set or data store. And so we ended up just going and having our orchestrator be extraordinarily dumb. That is actually listening to our API via webhook. And that's just fully connected. And I basically wrote lack of better words, Terraform abstraction layer across all of the networks. So any network, basically like from a developer standpoint, if it has some type of SDK or even an API, we can connect it into the orchestrator and it can provision. And we standardize it in such a way that we can actually provision any type of resource as well. So again, if there is a way to provision something dynamically in code, we'll do it. And it's actually built in such a way that, for example, I coded the OpenShift within half a day. And then, like, that's just because we've standardized this now, everything's connected. We just, if we have an idea of like, oh yeah, let's try this, it's up and running. So yeah. Anything else? You mentioned you had a couple questions. Yeah.
Yes. The other one was Git T and Git T actions. Were you guys actually considering that for one of your CIs?
Right now, we typically focus on the larger market share, but it has been discussed. It is something that we can do. It's just, again, it's like how many CI tools do we want? Because I won't lie, once we get to 10, I'm going to have to figure out a new UI. I'll be honest. But yeah. Any other questions? No? Awesome. All right. Well, again, thank you very much. And honestly, reach out if you have any more questions. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm still at this. It's fine. I'm going to keep talking. Yeah. So, anything, again, if it's on AWS, for example, what do they call it? Androids or whatever they call it, their support for that. But yes, we do any mobile. The cool thing that I will say, like, this is neither here nor there, but it's a little bit of me rant, and it's like a future vision that I have. But like, with COVID and the data centers, or not COVID, but like with all these, alert, with all these buildings, and you have these, this is a very future goal for me, but if you ever worked at like a big corporation that just has these computers just laying around with these shared desks unused, we can actually use those to provision CI. Like, we can use those tools sitting underneath a desk that no one is actually touching, that is just wasting away. And yeah, so I already have a couple of bullet points ideas on how I want to configure that. The trickier one was going to be Macs, because full transparency, I was working, I think I can say this, actually. I know I can say this. I was working with Walmart, and they had 150 Mac clusters, 150 Macs sitting just in their data center doing nothing. They wanted to use it. They had no idea how to do it or anything like that. So one of the methodologies that I came up with was to connect to Macs on the on-premise data center. And that's honestly where other ideas of, vCenter, vSphere, all the VMware stuff as well. Because let's be honest, underneath the hood, every data center is just VMware. But yeah, basically the idea is that there is at least in my opinion, there's a bunch of wasted resources out there, and I want to be able to leverage them all. So. Yeah. So the cool part is, again, all the logs for your build exist in that tool still, which is great. But I also have logs that you can go into yourself and get, why did it fail to provision? Because that's on the orchestration side, right? If we fail to provision, that's a problem that we should solve. But I currently am trying to avoid any interaction with CI, like the actual CI functionality. So I want developers to keep developing in their tool of choice. You can go in and see, but it's mostly for the system admin. Like again, the system admin side of me, who, I think it was, I forget the company, but they had consistently 4,000 Nomad servers up and running at any point in time, underutilized constantly, but their peak demand just spikes every so often. And like being able to troubleshoot that and then finding the logs, but at any point in time, you can go in and Phantom Agent literally has a process just monitoring for the network usage, the memory usage, everything along those lines, plus the CI logs. So, yeah. But yeah, awesome. All right. Well, I think I'm out of time. But again, if you guys have any questions, I know it's up there. It's in font, or it was up there. It was in really tiny font, but Ben at phantomagent.io, that's where I'm at. If you have any questions, or heck, if you want to pilot it, feel free. Like I 100, we'll do license. I'll give you a license key, and it's on-prem. Like just self-hosted, install it in a Kubernetes cluster, and go to town. So awesome. Thank you.